Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, how are you? My name is Chermaine Harrell, and I work for Brandman University, and I am also a student at Brandman University. I had the opportunity to receive my bachelor's degree while on active duty, and I also had the opportunity now to pursue my master's as a transitioned Marine. I retired or transitioned after 26 years of honorable and faithful service to the Marine Corps. And thank you. Yes, and one of my primary reasons for going into the military was the options that I had in life were to go to college, but unfortunately my family couldn't pay for college, so the military provided that opportunity for me to get my college education. Why I chose the toughest branch of service to go into to get a degree, I don't know, but it was because my brothers told me I couldn't, and I had to prove them wrong. And 26 years later, trust me, I proved them wrong. So we do have our student panel here today, and one of the most important things that colleges and universities really should consider is the perspective of our military students and our veteran students. One other key component that's necessary as well is our military families, and specifically our spouses. So we kind of decided on this student panel that we would mix it up a little bit and provide a panel that can provide you with information that would help you be able to take things back to your universities and colleges and provide programs and courses that are designed specifically to support the military student, the veteran student, and also keeping in mind our family members as well. I'm going to introduce our panel. I'm actually not going to introduce them. I'm going to say their names, and they're going to introduce themselves because each one of them has a very unique and special story. And most of them here, well, actually all of them here, either have attended or attending colleges and universities that are represented in this room today. So I'm going to start from all the way from my left to the right, and I'll just say their names, and then they'll introduce themselves at that point. So Aretha Sullivan, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Aretha Southwell, and I'm from New York City, New York. And I came to California in my first year in the Navy and actually spent all 20 years of my career in the Navy here in San Diego and retired, and San Diego is now my home. Love San Diego, not trying to go back to the snow. But I began college before I went to the Navy, and I went to Queensborough Community College in New York, but I didn't complete college and decided to go to the Navy to get away from home. So unlike some, my family could afford college, but pretty strict growing up. I wanted to get away and go do things on my own, so I joined the Navy. Pretty drastic, but I did and loved it and stayed 20 years. After 20 years in the Navy, I realized something was missing, and I didn't complete or close the chapter, which was completing my education. And I didn't know where to begin or where to start. So I started fishing around and asking questions, and some of the universities that I went to or interviewed with didn't quite fit what I was looking for. And one of my peers recommended Brandman, and I attended, and they were so focused on my goals and what I needed and what I wanted that I stayed and did my undergrad in organizational leadership, and I just completed last night my graduate program in human resources. And my goals are to actually put all the things that I've learned in my curriculum to use and help better organizations and use the tools I learned for greater good. It's good to have a degree and have it on the wall, but when you're not putting it to use, it kind of defeats the purpose of that higher education. Thank you.
And then we have Ian Hammett.
Afternoon, my name is Ian Hammett. I am currently active duty Navy stationed at Camp Pendleton. I attended 1 year of college in Iowa before I joined the Navy. It was very flat. I'm from Utah, wasn't used to it. Currently, I'm pursuing a double major in Bachelor of Arts in Healthcare Studies through Ashford University, and then a Bachelor of Science in Organic Biology from Miracosta College and SDSU, so 3 universities at once, or 3 institutions at once. For me, going to school was more about using my time in the military wisely. If you don't use the military for what it's worth, you're wasting your time there. And luckily I had people around me that push me in that direction. And I try to do the same with people that aren't going to school. And what's amazing to me is how many opportunities your institutions give us to go to school. It's pretty incredible that you can do that while on active duty, working way more than full time. So, thank you.
And Jodie Commiato.
Good afternoon. Jodie, and I'm from Texas, and joined the Marine Corps soon after graduating high school for the same reasons as to go to college. And I started going to a community college there while in the reserves, and with my now husband, who's also a Marine, we got orders to go to Okinawa, Japan, and I continued my education once we got there at the University of Maryland, University College. Woo! Got my bachelor's in psychology, and soon after leaving there, we got orders to come here for him to be a drill instructor. Good times. And I decided to further my education and get my master's because I found that getting a bachelor's in psychology is pretty much just a degree on the wall. Can't really find a job there. And so I'm pursuing my master's degree now. We'll be graduating in May. And I'm in the Marriage and Family Therapy program at Brandman University. And it's a great program, very flexible, very, I can achieve so much with being there. And from what I hear at my internship, that Brandman brings the best students to the internship. So that's speaking very highly of Brandman University. And my goals are to be a therapist, helping the military family and veterans as well, in any aspect, post-deployment, for the families during deployments and for after deployments, and even for veterans with any kind of substance abuse problems. So those are my goals, and looking forward to continuing this and recommending Brandman University in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that plug. Appreciate that. And then we have John Craig, and actually Jodie also is our military spouse. John Craig is next, and he has an extremely unique story. I should have done this.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Craig, United States Marine for 30 years. Today was my last day of active duty service. It may not look like today was my last day. I've been practicing now for about 30 days. So, I'm originally from Washington, D.C., served in the military and Marine Corps for 30 years, been married for 28 of those years. So my wife is retiring with me after a long and faithful service. I am currently a doctoral candidate with North Central University, where I'm studying the effects of certain effects of radicalization on homeland and homegrown terrorists. I've been in the program now for about 6 years. I should defend my dissertation this summer. My undergrad, my master's was with American Military University, very military friendly. Had a great time there. My undergrad was with Southern Illinois University, where I attended their program at Coronado, just real close by here. Originally, I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted to complete my education. I left high school and went immediately to college, and almost immediately ran out of money. And so the Marine Corps looked good, had some great options, and my plan was to get in, do 4 years, get out. That didn't happen. I enjoyed the uniform, I enjoyed serving my country, And along the way, I found opportunities to take advantage of tuition assistance, and that's what I've primarily used for my whole entire journey. I have not really paid anything other than books for any of my degrees. So the Marine Corps services has been very, very good for me. My goals eventually are to teach at the university level. That's what I aspire to do. Currently, I'm looking at a tentative offer from Brandman, teaching their adjunct program now. So I'm on my way, meeting the goals, and I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Ricky Sanders.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ricky Sanders. It's actually James, but I go by Ricky, so I prefer Ricky. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Go Eagles. You're supposed to laugh. I'm a United States Marine, retired last December 20th, after 23 faithful years of service. Long time for myself and my wife and kids. My school journey started when I went to Chaminade University in Hawaii. I got my associate's degree there. Then I started my bachelor's program with National University, and I transferred over to Ashford, and that's where I completed my bachelor's in social and criminal justice with Ashford University. Once I completed that, I started looking into more colleges, and I decided to take classes with I2 APU and American Military University. I'm currently on their master's program with Homeland Security. And I'm about to attend Phoenix University starting next month with their master's program in Administration of Justice and Security, and try to work that program and see how it works out for me. The education part, as far as the TA, military helped me, assist me in getting my degrees, and if it weren't for the military, I probably wouldn't have a degree at this time and wouldn't continue to pursue it. And in the future, I would like to teach as well, just like the soon-to-be doctor here, professor, at one of the universities out there that would accept my degree program, which I want to try to shoot for criminology and as a doctoral degree program. And with hard work and dedication, I'm sure I can get there one day. Thank you.
And the reason why this gentleman here is in uniform is because the Coast Guard is on deck. And Anthony, hopefully I don't mess your name up. Qualtiere?
Close. That's.
I'll let you say it.
My name's Anthony Qualtiere. I'm currently active duty in the United States Coast Guard as an electrician's mate, second class. I am stationed in Long Beach, California, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit about my educational experience. It began right out of high school. I went to the University of South Florida because I wanted the big state school experience. In 4 years at the University of South Florida, I got a 2-year degree, which tells you a little bit about how much fun I had there. But my main gripe that I would have with that is I didn't have a whole lot of guidance. I didn't have a whole lot of drive to any one specific goal. Changed my major 3-4 times before finally running out of money. And I was looking for something to point me in a direction. So I joined the USCG, the Coast Guard, and spent a couple years on a boat, got a little life experience. I decided to go back to school. I finished my bachelor's degree last March from Columbia College, Missouri. They were great to work with. We had, one of the big things was we had classes right on base that made all the difference in the world for me. After finishing that degree, I decided to move on to an MBA program, and I'm 2 semesters away from finishing my MBA at St. Leo University. So I'm looking forward to being done for a little while. From this station, I'll be going out to Hawaii to go back to sea for a few years, but I think I'm trying to make the decision right now whether to pursue my PhD or not, but I'm looking forward to the break. Go for it? All right. And that's about it.
Okay, so you said brought some heavy hitters up here, right? All right, so what we really wanted to do is to give you all the students' perspective of what a service member or veteran experiences. One, when they first think that they want to pursue higher education, and two, how to navigate through that path to get from point A to point B in the most direct manner, and also in a way that they can balance that with everything else that's going on. So I'm going to give them a few questions, and all of them will have the opportunity to give their perspective on their experiences. So my first question, and I'm going to start with Aretha, because she's had a long time to sit there and relax. What I wanted to know is, what were your initial thoughts, fears when you decided to pursue higher education as it pertained to military service, retirement, etc., everything that you had going on? What were your fears?
Well, my initial thought when I was completing my military service was, what did I want to do with my life? Because 20 years of being an aircraft mechanic, I figured I didn't want to do that anymore as I get older, so I didn't know really what I wanted to do, so that was a thought, and how to narrow that down on something that I would be a good fit at doing. And the fear was, am I too old to go back to school, and how will I compete and stay up and stay abreast of what's going on with the younger students that's in my class?
Interesting. Ian?
For me, my initial fear, being active duty, you really don't know where you're going to end up, especially out of Pendleton. Even though I was at a shore command, a hospital, you're deployable at any time, and being with the Marine Corps, they like to deploy a lot. So that was one of the big fears, is if I start, will I be able to finish? Especially when it comes to semester-type programs, being in class for 16 weeks, it's hard to manage. So that was probably my biggest fear, was, am I going to get myself into something that I won't be able to finish, and it's going to end up hurting me rather than help me?
Thank you. Jodie?
My initial thoughts and fears whenever I was pursuing for my master's, I'll go with, was finding a school that was accredited and was well known enough to where I wouldn't have to explain where I'm going to school and where that's at, and to make sure that I'm getting a quality education. So when I just type into Google MFT program, I didn't want to just kind of go with just any random school. It had to kind of, one, be military friendly, because I didn't want to go to school that didn't understand the demands of a military spouse and military life, and the fact that we could pick up and go. But I wanted to make sure that my education was good, so that way if we had to transfer, it was transferable. It wasn't going to be like the credits didn't count towards anything at my next school. So that was kind of my big points in finding my school, picking out Brandman.
Good, thank you. John?
I think probably one of the challenges I faced came when I was going for my associates and my undergrad. Because, not to date myself, but back then, the explosion of online access just was not possible. So everything was brick and mortar. So the challenge was, and at the time I did not have sufficient rank to dictate my own work schedule. Someone else did. So trying to find a school that understood the culture I was coming from the military, and was familiar with the concept that, hey, I might be here today, next week I may be on the other side of the world, was very important. It was challenging. So, finding schools where you could fit those blocks of time to get your degree accomplished was probably the hardest part. And then later on with the master's and on, the online aspect just made it so much easier. Asynchronous learning was just a boon, because I completed some of my classes while I was in Iraq. I completed courseware and courses and finished papers while embarked upon a ship. So the culture had begun to change, and the technology that was being used also began to change. So that made things somewhat easier.
Thank you. Ricky?
I think my biggest fear was not being able to keep up with the tempo of learning and turning my assignments in on a proper time, but and keeping up with my professional job and maintaining high standards that's always been instilled in me. So that there kind of threw me off, and I thought that it was going to be a problem, but I dedicated myself, and I had drive, and it didn't change anything. So I was able to balance out my work and going to school at the same time with a lot of late hours, long hours, and late nights.
Anthony?
I think I'm in the same boat as everyone up here. These guys will probably think my workload's a little bit light, but I work about an average of 55 hours a week for the Coast Guard and then go to school as a full-time student on top of it. And that was one of the major fears that I have, was being able to fit everything into a schedule. And it sounds like flexibility seems to be a recurring theme. Flexibility is huge. There's days where I can't leave base. Luckily, I'm at a shore unit, but there's the unit I'm going to, I'm going to be underway for 3 months. So how do I go to school when I'm out to sea? So those are the sort of problems that worried me looking into education, and flexibility, the schools working with me on scheduling, on turning in assignments. That was the biggest help when trying to finish my degrees.
Wow, flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. There's nothing worse than the sergeant major telling you you got duty tonight, and you have to balance that with going to class. All the instructors, professors of the schools willing to listen to the plight or just the situation that service members have as it pertains to trying to balance both their military obligation, which comes first, and then their off-duty activities, which are in most cases just as important, but because you're obligated by service, you don't necessarily have the choice to go to class, as John was alluding to. Go ahead.
I wanted to just add, it's not just sometimes you may find a university or college that's very flexible, but then what we also face is our internal cultures where, in my case, you almost had to educate certain components of your chain of command on the importance of higher education. Back in the day when I was coming through, the Marine Corps expected you to live, eat, and breathe the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. And if you wanted to pursue higher education, well, that's nice, but that's not important. You get it done in your own time, and mission first, always. So there was a certain amount of stress and pressure there that always seemed to want to creep in on the things, the goals, the educational goals that you may have had. So you had to balance that against all the other competing concerns you had.
Perfect. So really just understanding also too that, military students and veterans that want to pursue higher education, do have other requirements and obligations that kind of are, I don't want to say roadblocks, but are little speed bumps that kind of take away from pursuing that in a timely fashion. My next question, and we'll go with Anthony, is if there was anything that you could do or you could change to make the process of going back to school easier for service members and veterans, what would that be?
I'll be honest, every organization that I've worked with trying to pursue my education has been very helpful up to this point. The problems seem to be inherent to the duty itself. There's not really anything I can do if I'm on duty, there's not really anything I can do to my chain of command to get them to let me leave work. That obviously duty comes first. So I'm not really sure that I would change anything with my experience up to this point, because everyone that has worked with me has worked around my schedule and worked with me to help me achieve my goals.
Okay. Ricky?
I would, with certain schools that don't have enough military enrollment advisors, I would beef up that aspect of it. That way you can get more of the military aspect of the student and what student you're going to get. Because sometimes the students in the military end up withdrawing from classes due to the fact that they're operation tempo. Now, if you have an advisor that's embedded in your school that can tell you whether that individual is going to stay in the class or not, it would work out better, because he can so to speak, understand the individual's schedule and what he has to deal with. And sometimes that individual, the advisor can speak to the individual chain of command and see if they can assist them in helping that individual get their degree without any interruptions.
I absolutely agree with that. The main reason for my success has been my education service officer, Mr. Frejo. He's been a liaison between all the schools that I've taken part in. He's been a liaison to my chain of command, and without him as an advisor, I wouldn't be where I am in my education.
John?
Yeah, I would echo the same. I think for the university side, having a military liaison is priceless. They're going to earn their weight easily with the benefit toward the student. I think it helps to have the language be transferable between the college and what the military is doing. The other changes that I would recommend would have more to do with the service side. The service people sometimes have an issue when it comes to when they start the process. We go to the base education office and we're starting the paperwork if we're going to use tuition assistance. And that process is not always uniform from base to base. So where you may have done it one way in Okinawa, you get to Camp Pendleton and it's a whole different process. You got to take a whole different set of introductory courses to prepare you and so on and so forth. So that piece there probably needs to be streamlined somewhat. But from the college's perspective, I think you hit a home run when you invest in that person who understands our language and our culture.
Jodie?
I'd have to agree with having someone who understands at the school, so that way you have these young service members who are coming in, or even spouses who are using the tuition assistance from the GI Bill that don't really understand, because it's a big process in order to get the services transferred over to the spouse, and then what do you do with it there, and how is it going to get to the school, and is that going to work? So having someone who understands that, the checks and balances to make sure that you filled out this paperwork here, and, or you're missing this here, and so that way they're on top of it instead of saying, well, I don't know, we usually just get the money, that it's important for them to understand, so that way we're still continuing our education and not worrying so much about the financial part of it as well. Otherwise it's, because higher education isn't something that can just be paid for out of pocket kind of thing. It's, it takes more dedication with student loans or with military, the TA. So I think having someone that understands, speaks the same language is very important.
Thank you. Ian?
Right along the same lines as everybody else. I know when I first started going back to school, just through word of mouth, I didn't understand the tuition assistance process at my command because it's a Navy command on a Marine base, so our office was down here, so I couldn't just drive by and talk to somebody. So I actually started by paying for classes out of pocket, and my student advisor was the one who contacted my command to get information on my own command's TA process, and then pass that along to me so I could start using that to pay for school. So having people that are motivated like that, and he wasn't military, he didn't speak my language, so to speak, but having people that are motivated that are there specifically to help military service members, especially ones who aren't going to school, who are younger, who don't understand the process, the application, things like that, is important.
Aretha?
For me, one thing that would have been easier in the process was having more of a choice of universities or schools to attend. Right when I was retiring, a lot of the schools that I heard about were the ones that were actually represented at the base and did classes on base and had the campuses on base. But a lot of the other universities I haven't heard anything about unless I saw your commercial on TV. So I think more of having a base presence and having your veterans liaison contact the liaisons on base a little more, and sometime maybe plan a college fair, a school fair. That way people that are retiring or want to pursue school have more of a choice of where they want to go other than what's offered on the bases.
Thank you.
Can I second
Oh,
that
yeah,
too?
go ahead.
I agree with that. Finding the right school to go to that fits my needs, that also accepts military, our or not kind, but, that understands, what we go through is big. And, like, I didn't know about Brandman University until I saw a commercial, and of course I've heard about Columbia because my husband has an associate's because he was on base. So you understand, we see what's on base. We don't really see what's outside of base because this is our culture, living on base, and that's what we know. So I agree that having some kind of fair from other schools that, maybe you have a military presence, but it's not that big because we don't know about it. So being more, willing to maybe put yourself, on base or putting up with a college fair or something would help even the transitioning service members out as well, not just the current active duty and spouses.
Thank you, Jodie. Military friendly, military friendly, military friendly. And we hear that all the time. What I want to know from you all, and starting with Anthony, is what do you consider the characteristics of a military friendly school?
I think we already started to touch on it. It's flexibility, adaptability, willingness to work around schedules. I have an example in my most recent class that I took. It was an 8-week-long course, and 4 weeks of it I was in military training at Trace in Yorktown, learning my trade, learning about electrical work. And because of that, it made it very difficult to stay up on both my studies in the military and my studies for higher education. But one of my teachers at St. Leo University was great, willing to work with me. It's finals week and I have to turn something in as soon as I leave here, but there have been assignments. It's a long project throughout the semester, and I have benchmarks to meet each week. And they were very flexible, allowing me to push some of those benchmarks back and turn things in a little bit late because they understood that in military training, you don't get a whole lot of time to concentrate on other things.
Thank you. Ricky?
I kind of ditto some of the things he said, as well as those schools that have the idea of understanding the military individual, understanding what they have to do while in the military. You're not going to know everyone's job. Like, I'm an infantry guy, but some nights in the field, I'm under a poncho with a flashlight hung up on top of my poncho trying to do papers or write down things to remember so when I get back to the rear, back out of the field, I can start my paper process. And my professor, understanding that, and he knew that I was going to be a day late. So if you have those individuals that understand the military aspect of what you have to do, then I think military-friendly schools will help you out the most. And those individuals that understand what the military personnel have to go through.
Yeah, it's not, personally, my personal opinion is it's not whether you have it turned in by Saturday. If my quality of work is just as good as every other student, but I can't turn it in on Saturday because I couldn't be away from the base on that day, why shouldn't I get the same grade on Sunday?
Flexibility and understanding.
John?
I agree. The flexibility there, and probably for civilian students as well as military, appreciate that flexibility. And I think military students, it's not that they want like special benefits or privileges. They simply want a way to translate the mechanisms that they're accustomed to into what the university or college is going to use. Tuition assistance is just like an example. With North Central, currently, when I was using it, I would use the TA, I'd get all the paperwork signed, and I simply had to fax it in, or I could email it in. It was a very straightforward process, and the university received the documents, and it wasn't like big question mark. What is this? What do you want us to do with this? They understood that process, and so it didn't delay my starting my classes and going forward. Another thing with the flexibility, I think a military-friendly university employs people who either are affiliated with the military or have been at some point. One of my professors when I was in my master's program was a retired rear admiral. And so while I was embarked on ship many moons ago, I was able to share my experience with him. He understood what I was going through. So Whenever we would lose connectivity on ship, he understood that, and so when he received my assignments, he knew the backstory with that. And so it wasn't a negative hit on me. So that flexibility is just priceless for the military member because it takes away some of our stress. There's enough for us to have to catch up with once we come from the field or from deployments or whatever. But if the university is willing to meet us halfway and work with us on that, I think that's a great benefit.
Thank you. Jodie?
To me, I've got a little different kind of aspect with a school being military friendly in that the cost of tuition is always a factor whenever I was looking at schools. I had to make sure that, I was in the reserves, so I didn't qualify for the GI Bill when I got out. So I'm looking at, student loans. And so finding schools that offered a little bit of a discount on credit cost or, even some kind of benefit for being military, military friendly, that because I'm a spouse, they offer credits, or a discount cost. That was important to me because that let me know that, it's important to them to have military in their school to, provide the culture there. So for me, a military-friendly school isn't just about the flexibility, which of course it is, but it's a little different for me because I'm a spouse now. But just providing a little bit of a price break is very important too. So that's very beneficial for the military members and spouses as well. Even though we get TA, I'm pretty sure there's a limit on that. So it's not like you can just go anywhere and it's going to be paid for free. So it still has to be taken into account that, we have to look at the price of our education as well.
The school I'm going to now, St. Leo University, they take that into account, and that was huge in my decision in deciding to go there. They actually lower their per semester price to the tuition assistance limit so that I don't have to take out student loans.
That's good, yeah. So that's important as well.
Thank you. Ian?
Same as these guys as far as cost and flexibility. I think both those are important. One other aspect is in the military, when we're not deployed, we're training. That's what we do. We're a trained force. So the aspect of taking that training and turning it into something meaningful as far as credit goes is huge. So the transferring of our credit into a university or another learning institution is something that I find to be extremely important when I'm choosing a school. I've spent 4 years in Navy training commands school the entire time. So when you think about it, I've been in school full-time ×2 for 4 years. So being able to actually put something of value on that is important. So I would say the transferring of credit and the understanding of Marine, Air Force, Coast Guard, Navy, Army, training is important.
Thank you. Aretha?
Actually, Ian, that's what I wrote down on my paper for that question.
I didn't steal it, I promise.
But actually, I went along Ian's line because what's important to me is knowing that my 20 years of military service has value. And as a retired chief, we go through tons of leadership training, business class, people management, and I would like to know that some of those credits, if not fully, are somewhat transferable, and I'm able to add some of those credits to a degree program. Because some of the schools that I looked at before I decided was, oh, we'll offer you 42 college credits, or we'll give you 30 college credits. However, none of them are going to apply to your degree program. That's kind of disheartening because 20 years is a long time to go through these kinds of training and then hearing that none of them will apply to a degree program for you. So knowing how to transcribe or transfer some of our learning experiences into usable credits will be a help to us, actually.
Perfect. Thank you. Retention is one of those extremely important things that obviously all colleges and universities want to do, or want to have, or want to maintain. To maintain a military veteran student at a college, what are some of your expectations of that college or university to keep you there from start to finish? And I'll start with Anthony again.
All right. I think that communication was big with me. When I had concerns, St. Leo University has been excellent in listening to my concerns and helping me address them. Columbia College was good too, not quite up to the par that St. Leo University has, but having somebody to talk to me and help me figure out ways to address the problems that I have, that was a big expectation of mine. If my concerns are falling on deaf ears, I'm going to go find somebody that is willing to help me, willing to work with me to make it work.
Thank you. Ricky?
To not be overlooked of what you expected a university to give you and what you're asking for, which I'm not going to throw it out there, but I applied for one university, I'm not going to say the name, and I had no one answering my emails, no one answering the calls. It took them weeks to get back to me before I was only figured out that I wasn't the only person that dealt with the same issue. So I just took my concern elsewhere to another university that cared about what I was looking for. So the expectation is if I'm going to give my time and effort to this university for a degree program, I would expect that the individuals that are teaching me or guiding me in that direction do the same thing.
Thank you. John?
I think one of the things that would help retain military members or help them complete successfully some of the college programs are some of the counseling efforts. Because some of the military members come in and, they may have issues with PTSD, and there may be other things that they're dealing with that maybe their civilian counterpart, their students may not have to deal with. So I think some sensitivity along those lines are always helpful. And in whatever way you can minimize change. Change is good, but when you come into a program and you've begun down a certain road and you've invested so much time and energy, and it's very difficult if a policy changes in midstream that affects how you access the university or some of its media or some of its learning tools. So trying to keep policies consistent so that there's minimum impact on the student, I think is very, very helpful.
Thank you. Jodie?
For me, my expectations of a college is that, of course, I get a good education, a quality education, a high quality of education, so that way, whenever I go to get a job, that I am prepared for that job that I'm applying for. So it's not like I am, just given the very basic of information and expected to just go out and get a job and expect to succeed. So my expectations are for that high quality of education, as well as like job placement afterwards. I think that that's a big component for military spouses, as well as, just for even civilians. But knowing that they're going to help you find the proper kinds of jobs that fit your education is important. And I expect that from I would expect that from any school, because it's important to know that whatever your degree is, it doesn't just stop there, that you have options. So proper job placement afterwards is expectant for whenever I'm looking at a university as well.
Thank you, Jodie. Ian?
Same as everybody else. I also like the idea that
You can't look on our paper now? She moved her paper?
give me 1 second. When it comes to advisors and things of that nature, with the military, we get lost in our jobs a lot of the time. So thinking about the next classes, things like that, I know with Ashford University, I don't have to worry about it. My next courses are scheduled by someone. He calls me. We have a great chat. He lets me know what I need to do, and we get it done. So as far as retention is having it planned out for you makes it very, very easy. So you don't have to especially so like a community college or even a four-year university, you have to try to find classes that you can fit into to meet the requirements of your degree. A lot of institutions these days, they pre-plan that for you, so you're on a path already. It takes the thought process out of it. So having that advisor that does the hard work for you, they really do, that's the hardest part, is getting you into the class. Once that's done, really you just have to do the work, and it's simple.
Thank you, Ian. Aretha?
Actually, Jodie was the culprit this time, because I had on mine actual effective career center. And I know a lot of us military, me included, had a tough time learning how to write a resume. And it took me actually about a whole year to learn, and with several people helping me. And if we had if colleges had effective career center, and that was one of the services that were offered, that will be quite helpful. A good education is awesome, valuable, but if we don't know how to use it or how to apply ourselves or making ourselves visible to get into the positions that we desire or that will be a good fit for us, then we're actually going to be sitting on that degree and not being afraid to go out there and do it because we don't know how to do it. So just someone showing and teaching us how to apply what we've learned to the civilian lifestyle, the civilian culture, will be quite helpful.
I have something to add to that.
Go ahead.
With the counseling, kind of piggybacking off your counseling part of it, having a counselor that will listen to you and what your desires are, so understanding what your goals are, that they're not just, they hear you say, I want to, learn about psychology, and they say, oh, well, here's this, and, like, we'll put you right in this program, and not really offer any information about what you can do with that degree and what it's going to take in order to actually get a job with that degree, I think is very beneficial. So that way, it's not, our expectations are, in our head that we want to go and be a therapist, but this degree plan that we're on is actually not that at all. So I think that, especially for the younger kids coming in, or even military spouses that are just starting school, they think that this is what they're doing, but it's not until they're midway into their program they're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this, when, they did, but not knowingly. So I think that having that communication with a counselor that is very knowledgeable about the programs offered, as well as what those programs can do for you after the fact. So it's great and dandy being in the program as we're going, but once we get out, it's like, okay, now what? And making sure that we, as a student, actually understand what all is entailed in what it takes to get the degree, because I know coming with the MFT program that I'm in, I wasn't actually aware of all of the criteria involved. So I'm not going to point the blame on anyone, but I think that having a counselor that was like, okay, well, I just want you to, understand that it's not just a 2-year program, that, that you have an internship afterwards, that it includes all these hours, and that would have been more helpful to me, because it wasn't until, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through that I'm like, wait a minute, there's this too? And so, I think having the staff and also like like the directors of the program to be more involved with the students would be very beneficial as well. So that way, they understand that we're on track, and especially for the servicemen and women, that they understand where they are in the program and that they know what their next move is. And it's not just like, okay, I'm going to this class next, and then this class, and then this class. It's like we have an actual direction, and this is the meaning of it, and this is the end result, not just, okay, here's your degree, see you later. So.
Thank you. Okay, we are actually clicking down on the clock, and I wanted to give the audience the opportunity to ask some questions of our student panel. So are there any questions?
Thank you all for your service. Jodie, you raised a point that one of your concerns when you were considering where to go to school was the transferability of credit and the quality of the program.
Yes.
How did you learn about the concept of transferring credits, accreditation, and things that kind of revolve around that whole issue? Was it something that you already knew about? Did you learn about it through your ESO? Or how did you become aware of this whole issue of will my credits transfer or will they not?
Well, I learned about the concept from whenever I very started pursuing my education. And knowing that my husband was active duty, I had to make sure that I don't remember exactly who might have mentioned it, but it could have been a counselor at the school that I was going to, or even looking to go to the next duty station of where we were going. It was important to make sure that, you know, the transferability was there. So it was probably, I was educated by that, by my counselor, or even a word of mouth of other military members and spouses.
I had a similar experience. The first time I learned about whether things would transfer or not was the first time I tried to transfer. It kind of snuck up on me.
Yeah, I think I learned a little bit from that too. I was at the University of Phoenix for a few of their sessions, and that probably was actually my wake-up moment with transferability, actually. Because whenever I tried to transfer those credits over, I found that they didn't actually they weren't worth anything. And that was pretty disheartening because I paid a lot of money for that, and then to find out that it didn't transfer into anything else applicable to the same degree, but their classes were specific and it just didn't transfer. So I guess that was actually
A lot of it was probably my own doing, but I graduated with a bachelor's degree with 160 credits. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the same lines.
I too want to thank you for your service, and I'm sure that you probably have done some online courses. I'd like to know from the panelists, what has been your biggest challenge in trying to do online courses as service members?
My biggest challenge was communication with the actual instructor. Online, they have a block where you can send your instructor messages when you're having a problem with a specific, if it's a discussion board, a specific assignment, and sometimes it will take that instructor a week or two to get back to you, and by that time, the assignment was already due. So that was my biggest challenge, was communication.
I think learning how to navigate the online system is big as well, because I know at Brandman they revamped and they updated, and it changed everything. It changed the way, you know, how you posted and where things were located, and there was no actual guidance for that I was given that it was happening. It was like you log on one day and it's like, oh, it's all brand new. So that was kind of difficult. But as far as the actual online experience itself, I think that it's, when you get used to, I mean, I don't think online education's for everybody, because you can be real cookie cutter. You know, there's a discussion board question, you answer it, you have to fulfill a certain criteria in order to get full points, but what are you actually learning from that? So I think that having an online aspect to class is great. It's great for flexibility, but I think the actual content of the online portion of education really has to be considered, because I wouldn't attend an all online course or for my degree. I wouldn't personally, because I don't feel like I would get the same kind of experience or knowledge by just having to self-teach myself, basically.
I absolutely agree with you. I think all online programs aren't created equal. My first online class was back in 2004, and it was a very new concept at the time, and it was very cookie cutter, like you said. I think a lot of programs have developed leaps and bounds. The program I'm in now is an all-online MBA program, and they've incorporated things like interactive programs that you have to complete. I just took part in a group project where I had to interact with my classmates through the entire semester. Things like that, I think, are making the programs more comprehensive, but they're still developing, and they need to work the bugs out.
I think, well, just to say, I love online and online learning. I tend to thrive in that environment, but I think it was a factor of the type of program I was in and what my goals were. For my undergrad, it was all brick and mortar in the seat, and that was fine, but I think once I went to master's program where, I don't mean to make this sound condescending, but I did not necessarily need someone to hold my hand every single step of the way. What's our objective? What do we have to learn? What are you looking for? Let me go for it. Let me do it. And so the online really worked well for me in that regard, The only challenge then was managing my time effectively, because you don't have, oh, I got to be in class at this time. You got to make sure you're there and everything. You have to make sure you structure your home life effectively. So, sometimes, tell the wife, it's not, we'll put date night off to another night or something, and or the kids, when they want attention, you just have to really work your schedule differently to fit it in. But for me, the online experience was just outstanding. I loved it.
I have to agree with him, and I love the online experience as well because of flexibility, and the date nights too, because it'd be days in and hours where I'm in my dungeon doing paperwork or writing an essay, and then I hear somebody, "Are you done? Are you done?" I'm like, "Okay, give me 30 more minutes and I'll be out of my class," which is my own individual discipline class that I'm doing, which it takes a lot of discipline to do an online class.
Yeah.
Time affects you as well. If you don't have time management, you will not get your assignments in on time, and some teachers won't be flexible. So you just got to manipulate your time, have the right discipline, and it works out for you, and have fun at the same time.
And I will say, as technology has improved, that whole connectivity, asynchronous learning has gotten so much better. That there was a time when if you could be answering a question or working through an exam, and your system time out on you. And so sometimes the results were saved and sometimes they weren't, and then it created problems. But now, the last 3 years, 4 years, I have not seen any issues whatsoever. I can access my classwork from my smartphone if I needed to, or my iPad. That kind of technology and that kind of flexibility is prime for me.
Okay. Well, you know what? Thank you so much, everyone, for taking this time to listen to the.
There's someone in the back.
You got one more question?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kristen Bittner. I'm from Penn State World Campus, and we're working on a faculty development course for how to better serve military students. I'm wondering what advice you have for faculty for how they can make your experience richer, besides flexibility.
I tried to attend Penn State online, and their cost of their classes were way too much, and they weren't flexible to my military schedule. So if they can work on that aspect, I think they'll have a lot more students come in their direction. And I really wanted to attend Penn State.
If I were giving advice to the faculty development there, I would just say be mindful that sometimes the military, our jargon, our language and culture is markedly different than what they may experience with their civilian students. So, we have acronyms upon acronyms upon acronyms, which is coming upon us to explain, but sometimes there are things we say or do, and it comes from our military mindset. And sometimes I think that would be helpful for your faculty to understand some of that language and some of that jargon.
I think the important thing with online classes is having instructors that are engaged with your students. It's easy to just put material out there for the student to learn and grade assignments, but when you have an instructor staff that spurs dialogue and requests additional information from students, it creates a much richer learning environment for online, because you don't have that face time with your instructor. So having an instructor that is still engaged in a more personal relationship with their students, even in the online environment, it's a big deal.
I think being open-minded from an instructor standpoint is probably big too. I think you made a great point with the acronyms, the language. For people that have been in the military, and we see this from education to the professional world too, academic writing is a very different thing than professional writing. And the military has its own way of writing. We have memos, emails, and all this different writing that we do within the organization doesn't translate to academic writing very easily. So just being open-minded to that and teaching students how to change their writing style to an academic style of writing is very important, I think.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for attending our panel. I want to thank my dynamic panel here for participating today. Thank you so much. If you all have any questions, they'll be down here.